Mercedes and Land Rover have spent 50 years selling one simple idea. A serious off-road SUV, the kind that looks unstoppable and makes people turn their heads at a traffic light, has to cost a fortune, anywhere from $60,000 to $200,000. Then a Chinese SUV called the Jaecoo J6 arrived, one that nobody in Stuttgart or Solihull had on their radar, and within 12 months, it became one of the fastest-growing new car brands in the United Kingdom. In this video, we are going to pull this machine apart piece by piece, from the aluminum skeleton hiding under the body, to the camera system that lets you see straight through the floor, to a sneaky little feature on the back door that almost every reviewer walks right past. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly why engineers in Germany and England are sitting in meeting rooms right now, trying to work out how this car can possibly exist at this price. Because this is not just another budget SUV story, this is the moment the rules of an entire segment got rewritten. If you enjoy deep dives like this one, tap the like button before we go any further. These videos take an enormous amount of research to put together, and every single like pushes them to more people. Subscribe and turn on notifications too, because what is coming out of China right now deserves a front row seat. Let us start with the shape, because the shape is not an accident. Before we touch a single spec sheet, we will need to talk about something car companies discovered a long time ago. Something that has nothing to do with engineering and everything to do with psychology. Look at the vehicles that hold their value better than almost anything else on the road. The G-Wagon, the Defender, the Bronco. Every one of them is a box. Flat roof, upright glass, corners you could sharpen a pencil on. Not one of them slips through the air gracefully, not one of them is efficient, and people fight over waiting lists to buy them anyway. The reason lives deep in your head. When your eyes land on a boxy vehicle, your brain does not run a fuel economy calculation. It runs a survival calculation. Hard edges and straight lines whisper something primal. This machine is tough. This machine will not break. This machine will keep you safe. Manufacturers understood this generations ago, and they have been attaching premium price tags to right angles ever since. Mercedes has left the G-Wagon silhouette almost untouched for more than 4 decades, and that is deliberate. Soften those corners and the magic evaporates. It becomes one more anonymous SUV in a car park full of them. Keep the corners, and it stays an icon that people spend years saving for. But that iconic shape carries a genuine physical cost. A flat wall of metal shoving its way through the atmosphere generates massive drag, and drag devours energy. With a petrol or diesel engine, you can brute force your way past the problem. Fit a bigger engine, fit a bigger tank, burn more fuel, and move on. Now try doing the same thing with a battery. The penalty becomes vicious. Every extra bit of drag drains the pack faster. A faster draining pack needs to be bigger to deliver usable range. A bigger pack weighs more. More weight demands more energy, which brings you right back to needing an even bigger battery. It is a loop that eats itself. Most manufacturers stared at that loop and concluded that a boxy, affordable, fully electric off-roader was simply not possible. The physics said no. And to be fair to those manufacturers, the math was on their side. Every attempt at a boxy electric off-roader kept landing in the same place. Either the range was embarrassing, or the battery required to fix the range pushed the price into territory where only the wealthy could play. Pick 2 out of 3, they said. Boxy, electric, affordable. You cannot have all of them. Jaecoo stared at the same loop and asked a different question entirely. What if we attack the weight instead of the shape? What if the answer was never in the battery at all, but in everything wrapped around it? That question leads us straight to the material this whole car is built around. The J6 sits on what the engineers call a multi-cavity, all-aluminum body structure. That sounds like jargon, so let me put it in normal words. Nearly every car on the road, including plenty of very expensive ones, is made of steel. Steel is cheap, steel is strong, and the industry has over 100 years of experience stamping it, welding it, and painting it. Your doors, your roof, the frame under your feet, steel, steel, steel. But steel has 2 enemies it can never fully escape. It is heavy, and it rusts. Give it enough winters of road salt, enough muddy trails, enough wet mornings, and corrosion starts working on it from the inside. Coatings and treatments slow the process down, But the weakness never truly goes away. Aluminium plays by different rules. For the same volume, it weighs roughly a third of what steel weighs. It does not rust. And engineered properly, it can match or even beat the strength of the steel it replaces. So why is not every car made of it? Because working with aluminium has traditionally been slow, fiddly, and expensive. Precision machining, careful hand assembly, specialist processes. That is exactly why aluminium bodies lived exclusively in supercars and vehicles like the Range Rover. Part of the reason a Range Rover costs Range Rover money is sitting right there in the metal. Jaecoo got around this with a manufacturing technique called giga casting. The concept is almost embarrassingly simple to describe. You build a press the size of a small building, one capable of generating thousands of tons of clamping force, and you fire molten aluminium into a mold in a single shot. Where the old approach welded dozens of separate steel pieces together to create a structural section. This approach produces one enormous seamless aluminium component that does the same job. Imagine the difference between gluing 40 small pieces of a model together by hand and pulling the entire finished section out of a single mold. That is the leap we are talking about, applied at the scale of a full vehicle structure. Two huge wins come out of that single decision. First, hundreds of welded joints vanish from the car, and welded joints are exactly where cracks like to begin and moisture likes to creep in. Second, the weight drops dramatically. The finished vehicle comes in at around 1,800 kilograms, even though it carries a 69.8 kilowatt-hour battery pack. And that pack alone accounts for several hundred kilograms. Strip away the aluminium structure, and this car becomes significantly heavier and significantly less capable overnight. But the lightness is only half of what the aluminium buys you. The other half is time. Steel corrodes when life gets wet and dirty. Aluminium simply does not care. Ford this car through a river, leave it parked beside the ocean for a decade, cake it in mud every single weekend, and the structure underneath shrugs. Jaecoo engineered the J6 around a 30-year structural lifespan, and that is not a slogan from the marketing department. That is a decision written into the chemistry of the metal itself. And there is a softer benefit hiding inside all that hard science. A frame that never groans, never flexes in a worrying way, and never quietly rots beneath you, gives the driver something no spec sheet can measure: confidence. And when you are alone on a difficult trail, confidence is the most valuable feature in the entire car. Which brings us to the part that makes traditional off-roaders deeply suspicious. The J6 is fully electric. No diesel rumble, no transfer case, no mechanical locking differentials clunking into place. Just two motors, one battery, and a great deal of software. If you grew up believing that real off-road ability comes from a growling engine and a chunky mechanical drivetrain, this sounds like heresy. It sounds delicate. And the first objection arrives instantly. Water and electricity are not friends. What happens when the battery goes under in a deep crossing? What happens when mud packs itself into the motor housings? Surely this is where the electric dream sinks. Jaecoo answered that fear head-on. The complete high-voltage system, both motors and the entire battery pack, carries an IP68 rating. In plain terms, it is fully sealed against dust and built to survive being properly submerged in water. Not splashed, not dampened, submerged. Every connector, every seal, every housing was designed from day one on the assumption that owners would drive this thing into rivers and through bogs as a hobby. But waterproofing is just the ticket to entry. The real reason electric power transforms off-roading is torque. Press the accelerator in a diesel and there is a pause. The engine has to spin up. The turbo has to spool. The gearbox has to sort itself out. Only then does full twisting force arrive at the wheels. On the motorway, you never notice that gap. Halfway up a slippery, rutted climb with one tire starting to spin, that gap is the difference between cresting the hill and calling for a tow. The J6 runs one motor on the front axle and one on the rear, together producing close to 280 brake horsepower and 385 Newton-meters of torque. And every last bit of it is available the instant your foot moves. No lag, no buildup, no waiting. Even better, the software commanding those motors can shuffle power between the wheels in milliseconds. The moment a rear tire begins losing its grip on a wet surface, the system senses it almost before it fully happens and shifts drive to whichever wheels are still biting. Nothing locks, nothing clunks, nothing needs the driver's attention. It just happens, silently, thousands of times a minute. Compare that to a traditional setup, where the driver has to recognize the loss of traction, stop, reach for a switch, engage a mechanical lock, and try again. By the time all of that has happened, the electric system has already made 10,000 corrections. From behind the wheel, the sensation is strange at first. You aim the car at something intimidating, you squeeze the pedal, and it simply goes. It does not feel like electronics rescuing you. It feels like the car has more grip than physics should allow. Now for the feature that gets more attention than everything else combined. Jaecoo calls it the 540-degree transparent chassis mode, and the name barely does it justice. Here is the age-old problem it solves. Off-road, the obstacles that hurt you most are the ones you cannot see. The sharp rock just past the bumper, the rut deeper than it looked, the crossing you are not quite sure about. The bonnet blocks all of it. Your options have always been to stop, climb out, and walk the line yourself, or to rely on years of accumulated feel and hope your judgment holds. Veterans build that instinct over decades. Beginners learn it through expensive mistakes. The J6 deletes the problem with cameras and computing power. High-definition cameras sit under the wing mirrors in the front grille and at the rear. Individually, they show you the space around the car. But the onboard processor takes every feed at once, blends in the vehicle's speed, the steering angle, and the movement of the suspension, and renders it all as a live, three-dimensional image on the 15.6-inch central display. And here comes the part that sounds fake until you watch it happen. On that screen, the body of the car simply disappears. You can see the ground directly beneath you, including the precise position of your front tires relative to the rock or rut ahead. You are sealed inside the cabin, and you are simultaneously looking at a live, accurate picture of the terrain under your own floor. Anyone who has ever ground an alloy wheel against a boulder because they misjudged a line by 10 centimeters knows exactly what this is worth. For a newcomer who would otherwise spend an entire trail knotted with anxiety about what they cannot see, it changes the experience completely. Combine that with 200 millimeters of ground clearance, a 26-degree approach angle, and a 29-degree departure angle, and you have a machine that handles genuinely serious terrain while showing its driver everything the terrain is doing. The fear of the unknown disappears. What remains is just the fun. And notice what happened there. A skill that used to take a decade of trial, error, and dented sills to develop was compressed into a camera array and a chip. That is the pattern you will see running through this entire vehicle. Wherever tradition said you need years of experience, Jaecoo asked whether software could hand that experience to everyone on day one. Then, there is the trick on the tailgate that almost nobody mentions. Walk around to the back of the J6 and you will spot what looks, from every angle, like a spare wheel cover. Square, solid, mounted on the side-hinged rear door. Your brain fills in the rest automatically. Spare tire. Open it up and there is no tire at all. It is a storage box. An external sealed compartment bolted to the outside of the car. That sounds trivial until you think about what off-roading actually produces. Soaked boots, mud-covered recovery straps, a charging cable that spent the afternoon lying on a wet farm track. Normally, your choices are to dump all of it in the boot and destroy your carpets, or leave it at home and hope you never need it. This compartment moves the mess outside the cabin permanently. Fill it with filthy gear, click it shut, and the interior never knows. It is a tiny feature on a long spec sheet, but it tells you exactly who designed this car. People who actually take vehicles off-road, not people who just want to be seen in something that looks like it could. And features like this rarely come from a focus group. They come from someone on the engineering team standing in a muddy field at the end of a long day, looking at a pile of soaked equipment, and deciding that the next car they build is going to solve this properly. That same honesty carries straight through into the cabin. Climb in, and the first impression is silence. Not merely the absence of an engine, but a deeper quiet created by acoustic glass, and that sealed aluminum shell soaking up wind noise, road roar, and vibration to a degree you would expect from a car at double the price. The dashboard has been stripped of almost every physical button. No banks of switches, no separate dial cluster pretending to be an aircraft cockpit. Instead, there is that big, fast 15.6-inch touchscreen running on a Qualcomm Snapdragon 8155 chip, the same class of processor found in flagship smartphones. It responds instantly and controls nearly everything on board. The materials surrounding it feel expensive without shouting about it, and the long horizontal lines across the dash make the cabin feel calm and wide. Nothing in here is performing for you. There is no theatrical starter button ritual, no wall of chrome trying to justify the price. It simply works quietly, the way good technology should. Now put a traditional European SUV at the same price next to it. You will typically find a jumble of carried-over buttons, a smaller screen that already feels dated, and an instrument cluster displaying information you stopped needing years ago. None of it is broken exactly, but parked beside the J6's interior, it looks like it belongs to a previous era, and in a very real sense it does. The car industry moves at a glacial pace. A platform engineered today will still be underpinning new models a decade from now. And the legacy brands are trapped inside systems, supplier networks, and design processes built for a world of steel bodies, mechanical engines, and software bolted on as an afterthought. Rebuilding all of that costs billions and takes years. Jaecoo never carried that baggage. The J6 began life as a blank sheet of paper, designed from the very first line around an electric architecture, an aluminum structure, and a cabin organized around software. No compromises were made to accommodate a petrol variant because there was never going to be one. The result is a car that feels modern in a way that cannot be faked with a big screen, and a minimalist dashboard because every system inside it was born to work with every other system from the start. So step back for a moment, because the bigger picture here matters more than any individual feature. For 50 years, the recipe for a premium off-road SUV never really changed. Weld together a heavy steel body, drop in a powerful diesel or petrol engine, bolt on a mechanical four-wheel drive system with a low-range box, attach a prestigious badge, and charge accordingly, knowing full well that most buyers will never take it anywhere rougher than a gravel car park. That recipe held because executing it demanded enormous capital and generational expertise. Mercedes, Land Rover, Toyota, and a small handful of others had spent decades perfecting it. And any newcomer faced a gap that seemed impossible to close. The J6 does not try to close that gap. It walks around it. Aluminum instead of steel, motors instead of an engine, software instead of mechanical hardware. Jaecoo chose to compete on the things buyers actually feel: the capability, the quality, the confidence, while completely sidestepping the areas where the old guard's century of experience mattered most. You do not need 100 years of diesel development when there is no diesel. You do not need generations of steel stamping expertise when a giga press pours your structure in one shot. Change the technology stack, and the fortress the legacy brands spent decades building suddenly has no walls on one side. History has seen this movie before. Nokia did not lose because someone built a better keypad phone. Kodak did not lose because someone made better film. They lost because the ground the competition was fought on shifted underneath them, and all of their accumulated advantages belonged to the old ground. The question hanging over the luxury SUV segment right now is whether the same shift is happening in slow motion, while everyone politely pretends it is not. And this is why calling the J6 a budget G-Wagon misses the point entirely. It is not a cheaper copy of an existing idea, it is an answer to a different question. Not how do we undercut the incumbents, but what does the driver actually want to feel? And what is the best possible way to deliver that feeling with today's tools? The answer turned out to be an aluminum-bodied, dual-motor, software-driven electric box with a see-through floor and a fake spare wheel hiding a storage locker. And the answer turns out to be excellent. The established players are not asleep. They are racing to build their own electric platforms, their own casting lines, their own software teams, and the competition that follows will make every vehicle on the market better. But right now, in 2026, the J6 stands as proof of a principle the industry will be wrestling with for the rest of the decade. A tough, capable, emotional SUV no longer has to cost a fortune, no longer has to burn diesel, and no longer has to come from the badges that ruled this segment for the last 50 years. That is the Jaecoo J6, an aluminum skeleton, a software brain, 2 electric motors, and a spare tire cover with no tire inside it. If this video showed you something you did not know, hit that like button right now. It takes a serious amount of work to research and produce these breakdowns, and your support genuinely helps this channel grow. Subscribe if you have not already, and ring the bell so the next one lands in your feed the moment it drops. And here's my question for the comments. If the J6 went on sale in your country tomorrow at a competitive price, would you honestly choose it over a traditional diesel off-roader? Or does the badge still win? Drop your answer below. We will see you in the next one.